After the Civil War, the region of southwest Missouri lay in ruins. It was a tough and tumble land, with a struggling economy, hefty taxes, rampant lawlessness, chaos, and a breakdown of societal norms, particularly in the little hamlets and rural areas. In 1883, when Nathaniel N. Kinney settled down in Taney County, Missouri, he found a dire situation. Outlaws and renegades held sway, many of them remnants from the bushwhackers and guerillas who wreaked havoc during the Civil War. In the post-war era, the absence of any semblance of law enforcement allowed these outlaws to run amok. Local sheriffs were often puppets of powerful clans who controlled them, their main duty being to summon jury panels. If outlaws or their kin didn't sit on these juries, they'd grease the palms of those who did. Consequently, even though up to 40 murders took place in Taney County between 1865 and 1885, not a single suspect faced conviction. Taney County encompassed towns like Branson, Forsyth, Hollister, Merriam Woods, Rockaway Beach, Table Rock, and Taneyville. Nat Kinney wasn't a man to back down from anyone, towering at 6'6" and weighing over 300 pounds. After another cold-blooded murder on September 22, 1883, Kinney started pondering the idea of establishing a league for law and order, following the example of other vigilante groups that were popular at the time. When a prejudiced jury acquitted the killer, Kinney rallied 12 influential figures from the county who met in secret, forming a clandestine committee to combat the lawlessness and elect officials who would uphold the law. This covert assembly became known as the Bald Knobbers. Although they initially had noble intentions, the violence exhibited by this vigilant faction soon garnered nationwide attention. The organization rapidly expanded, and when they convened on April 5, 1885, an assembly of 200 individuals gathered atop Snap's Bald, a hill south of Forsyth, Missouri. Kinney, a gifted orator, was unanimously chosen as their leader. After extracting a solemn pledge of secrecy from his followers, Kinney directed them to enlist new recruits to carry out the group's objectives. In a matter of days, the Bald Knobbers publicly flexed their muscle when a group of over 100 of them forcibly entered the Taney County Jail, liberating the Taylor brothers, Frank and Tubal. These siblings were notorious in the region for their brutality and had been incarcerated for injuring a shopkeeper during a dispute over credit for a pair of boots. Interestingly, the store owner John Dickinson was a member of the Bald Knobbers. After breaking the brothers out of jail, the mob transported them to the southern outskirts of Forsyth, where they were met with the hangman's noose. The extent of this violence shocked several of the original members, prompting them to disassociate from the Bald Knobbers. Nonetheless, the group continued to swell, and before long, their ranks swelled to between 500 and 1,000 members. Kinney's faction intensified their efforts to rectify lawlessness by conducting nocturnal raids aimed at intimidating individuals they considered undesirables, such as drunks, gamblers, or women with a questionable reputation, into changing their ways. They instilled fear in those guilty of spousal abuse, unmarried couples cohabiting, and men failing to provide for their families. On occasion, they even visited those they deemed troublesome. The community soon divided into two factions, those who aligned with or supported Kinney, and those who viewed him as a despot and wished for his demise. Violence escalated as the group flogged or branded suspected thieves, arsonists, and robbers. For offenses like assault, disturbing the peace, or property damage, they administered fatal beatings or hangings. Some Bald Knobbers began to exploit their menacing authority for personal gain, targeting individuals indebted to them or possessing coveted land. They settled disputes over property boundaries and land deeds, whipped men for disrupting church services or for endorsing the wrong political candidate. Yet, the most severe punishment was reserved for those who spoke out against them. Some dissenters vanished, only to be found lifeless in the woods, having met a gruesome fate at the hands of Kinney's followers. Survivors of such ordeals claimed that the Bald Knobbers had killed more than 30 men and at least 4 women, but more realistic estimates place the number between 15 and 18. As the bald knobbers expanded their ranks and their acts of violence intensified, a fervent resentment brewed among a select group of men who dubbed themselves the anti-bald knobbers. However, the vigilantes thwarted every attempt to quell the turmoil. The courthouse went up in flames after a judge called for a state audit to uncover corruption among the county's officials. National newspapers disseminated stories about the savage conflict in Missouri, portraying the bald knobbers as the most extensive and formidable vigilante movement in the nation. In 1887, the bald knobbers slew William Edens and Charlie Green, both outspoken critics of the group, and gravely injured several members of their families. This sparked further outrage in the national press. 20 bald knobbers found themselves arrested, with most receiving relatively lenient punishments, ranging from fines to short stints in prison. However, 4 were condemned to death. On August 20th, 1888, Nat Kinney met his demise, shot and killed by Billy Miles, a member of the anti-bald knobbers, in a premeditated assassination. Miles faced trial for Kinney's murder, but was acquitted on grounds of self-defense. While the violence persisted for a brief period, by 1899, the bald knobbers era had reached its conclusion. In reality, the bald knobbers were no different from numerous other law and order groups that proliferated after the Civil War.